In a quiet Miller County parking lot, a woman's sense of entitlement turned a mundane afternoon into a viral lesson on accountability. It all started with a parking spot at Miller's Market, a family-owned grocery store where folks usually exchange nods, not drama. Jake Collins, the local chief of police, eased his SUV into a tight space, just 2 feet from a glossy white Range Rover that straddled the line. He didn't think much of it. Small-town parking lots are rarely battlegrounds. But inside the store, a woman with a blonde bob and sunglasses perched like a crown watched his every move from the produce aisle. To her, Jake's rear wheel grazing the faded white line wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was a personal affront. Her lips curled into a sneer, and without a second thought, she grabbed a landscaping rock the size of a grapefruit and marched outside. With no warning, she hurled it at Jake's windshield, shattering the glass with a crack that echoed like a gunshot across the lot. The sheer audacity of her act, driven by nothing more than a belief that she deserved better, didn't account for the 8-year-old boy, Zach, sitting inside, clutching a melting cherry popsicle. Her rage blinded her to consequences, assuming she could act with impunity because someone dared park too close to her pristine SUV. This wasn't about logic, it was about a mindset that says, I'm right, so I can do whatever I want. Americans know this attitude all too well, whether it's a neighbor griping over a fence post or someone cutting the line at a gas station. It's the kind of entitlement that festers in suburban cul-de-sacs and HOA meetings, where minor slights become justifications for chaos. The woman's reckless choice didn't just damage a windshield, it endangered a child and unraveled her own narrative when she tried to play victim. For the 18 to 50-year-olds scrolling X or catching this on the evening news, it's a stark reminder. Entitlement might feel righteous in the moment, but it can lead to actions that crash harder than a rock through glass, especially when the truth and a police chief stand in the way. In the heart of Miller County, a single reckless act in a grocery store parking lot turned a peaceful spring afternoon into a chilling wake-up call. Jake Collins, the local chief of police, had just parked his SUV in a tight spot near Miller's Market, a small-town staple where everybody knows everybody. He stepped out, leaving his 8-year-old son, Zach, in the back seat, happily slurping a cherry popsicle with the AC humming and the window cracked 2 inches for air. Jake figured he'd be gone 5 minutes tops. Long enough to grab a gallon of milk, not long enough for trouble, but trouble found him. A woman seething over Jake's parking, which she deemed too close to her sparkling Range Rover, decided to take matters into her own hands. Without a glance inside the SUV, she gripped a jagged landscaping rock, roughly 6 inches wide, and hurled it with force. The windshield exploded in a spiderweb of cracks, the sound slicing through the quiet lot like a thunderclap. Inside, Zach froze, his wide eyes staring through the fractured glass, hands trembling around his popsicle stick. The woman had no idea a child was there. Her anger blinded her to anything beyond her own grievance. That split-second choice, born of petty frustration, could have been catastrophic. For Americans aged 18 to 50, especially parents or those who felt the weight of protecting kids, this hits hard. It's the nightmare scenario you dread when you leave your child for a moment, trusting the world to stay sane. Zach wasn't hurt, thank God, but the terror in his eyes as Jake sprinted to him, milk spilling across the pavement, speaks volumes. It's a gut-punch reminder of how one person's careless rage can ripple, threatening the most vulnerable among us. Whether you're a millennial dropping your kid at soccer practice or a Gen Xer running errands in a suburban strip mall, the story underscores a truth we all feel. Kids deserve safety, and adults have no excuse for endangering them over something as trivial as a parking line. The woman's ignorance didn't erase the risk she created, and when justice rolled in with red and blue lights, it was clear. Actions have consequences, especially when a child's safety hangs in the balance. In the sleepy parking lot of Miller's Market, a small-town grocery store in Miller County, a single act of impulsive anger turned a routine errand into a heart-stopping lesson about unintended consequences. Jake Collins, the local chief of police, had just maneuvered his SUV into a narrow parking spot, about 2 feet from a gleaming white Range Rover that hogged the line. It was a warm spring afternoon, the kind where the sun feels gentle and kids are flushed from running around at gym class. Jake's 8-year-old son, Zach, sat in the back seat, his curls damp, happily licking a cherry popsicle that stained his lips red. The SUV's AC hummed softly, keeping the interior cool, and Jake cracked the rear window a couple of inches for extra air. "You okay, champ?" he asked, getting a nod and a grin in return. With a gallon of milk on his mind, Jake stepped out, expecting to be back in 5 minutes. Hardly enough time for the world to unravel. But it did. Inside the store, a woman with a stiff blonde bob and sunglasses perched like a tiara had watched Jake park. To her, his rear wheel grazing the faded white line was an unforgivable offense. Fuming, she grabbed a landscaping rock about 6 inches across and jagged, and stormed out the automatic doors. Without pausing to check the SUV, she reared back and threw the rock with venom. The windshield shattered in a vicious crack, glass splintering into a spiderweb that caught the afternoon light like a wound. The sound ripped through the quiet lot, sharp as a gunshot. Inside, Zach froze, his popsicle stick trembling in his small hands, eyes wide with terror as he stared through the fractured glass. The woman, blinded by her own rage, had no idea a child was there. Her petty grudge over a parking spot could have cost a boy his safety, or worse. For Americans aged 18 to 50, this moment lands like a punch to the gut. Whether you're a millennial buckling your toddler into a car seat or a Gen Xer juggling errands after work, the thought of a child caught in someone's reckless outburst is a nightmare. Zach wasn't hurt, thank God. But Jake's heart stopped when he saw his son's face, milk spilling across the pavement as he sprinted to the car. It's the kind of fear that haunts parents in Walmart lots or suburban gas stations, trusting the world to stay civil for just a moment. The woman's act wasn't malicious toward Zach, but that's the point. Her entitlement erased any thought of who might be affected. Across the U.S., from Texas cul-de-sacs to Ohio strip malls, this story resonates because it screams a truth we all hold tight. Kids are off limits. One person's tantrum doesn't justify endangering a child. And when Jake's badge came out and the cuffs went on, it was clear. Consequences don't care if you didn't mean it. In the tense aftermath of a shattered windshield at Miller's Market in Miller County, a woman's brazen attempt to rewrite reality unfolded like a scene from a viral X post, exposing the dangers of manipulating truth in the digital age. Jake Collins, the local chief of police, had parked his SUV 2 feet from a polished Range Rover, sparking the ire of a woman who saw his careful parking as a personal slight. Her response was a landscaping rock, about 6 inches wide, hurled through Jake's windshield with a crack that echoed across the lot, terrifying his 8-year-old son, Zach, who sat inside clutching a melting cherry popsicle. But what came next was almost as shocking as the glass shards glittering on the pavement. As Jake rushed to check on Zach, the woman didn't flee or apologize. She pulled out her phone, its glittery case catching the spring sunlight, and hit record. With a dramatic huff, she angled her camera at Jake, her voice climbing an octave into a rehearsed tremble. "This man threatened me," she declared to a growing crowd, claiming he'd come at her, a woman alone, after parking aggressively. The lie was so bold it froze the air. Bystanders, some with grocery bags still in hand, exchanged glances. Many had seen her throw the rock just moments before. Yet her conviction, delivered with the polish of someone used to getting her way, sowed a flicker of doubt. For Americans aged 18 to 50, this stunt feels all too familiar. From heated HOA meetings to viral clips of coffee shop meltdowns, we've seen people flip the script to dodge accountability. Whether you're a Gen Xer scanning news feeds or a millennial doom-scrolling TikTok, the tactic rings true. Control the narrative, and you might control the outcome. The woman's performance, yelling, "I don't feel safe," while waving her phone like a shield, was theater, banking on the crowd's phones and the internet's short attention span to make her the victim. Jake, heart-pounding but steady, didn't take the bait. Years of training kept him calm as he checked on Zach, ignoring the urge to shout her down. He knew the truth, backed by witnesses and his department-issued dash cam, was stronger than her story. That restraint resonates in a country where tempers flare in Walmart aisles or over parking spots in suburban sprawl. When police arrived, her act crumbled. Officers recognized Jake as Chief Collins, and her cries of "arrest him" turned to stammers. The crowd, now witnesses, held up phones that captured her rock throwing, not Jake's threats. For viewers from Texas to Ohio, it's a satisfying gut check. You can spin lies in a 10-second clip, but truth hits harder when evidence stacks up. Her gamble to twist reality didn't just fail, it landed her in cuffs, a reminder that in a world of cameras, the real story eventually breaks through. In the chaotic wake of a rock shattering his SUV's windshield in Miller County's Miller's Market parking lot, Jake Collins, the chief of police, turned a volatile moment into a masterclass in justice served with professionalism and truth. The woman who threw the 6-inch landscaping rock, enraged over Jake's SUV parked 2 feet from her Range Rover, didn't just damage property, she endangered Jake's 8-year-old son, Zach, who sat inside, stunned, his cherry popsicle trembling in his hand. As she spun lies, filming Jake and claiming he threatened her, the air crackled with tension. A crowd gathered, phones out, some murmuring disbelief at her audacity. But Jake didn't flinch. Standing 2 feet from her, his heart raced. Zach's scared eyes burned in his mind. Yet his voice stayed low, sharp, controlled. "Stay right there," he told her, decades of training overriding the urge to shout. For Americans aged 18 to 50, Jake's restraint is the kind of quiet strength you admire, whether you're a millennial navigating office drama or a Gen Xer settling disputes at a PTA meeting. He didn't need to flash his badge early. He called his precinct's direct line, voice steady, laying out facts, a rock, a broken windshield, a kid in danger. When officers arrived, red and blue lights cutting through the spring dusk, they recognized Chief Collins instantly. The woman's accusations, Jake is the aggressor, fell apart as witnesses nodded toward the rock, and Jake's dash cam, department issued and rolling the whole time. "Bag the rock," Jake said calmly. "Check the footage." That cool-headedness resonates across suburban parking lots from Florida to Oregon, where fairness often feels drowned out by noise. Jake's reveal, "I'm chief of police for Miller County," wasn't a boast but a gavel drop, silencing her stammered excuses. Charged with felony property damage, false reporting, and endangering a minor, she faced cuffs, not because Jake flexed power, but because truth held firm. For viewers catching this on X or local news, it's a win that feels earned. Justice not shouted or staged, but built on evidence and calm. In a world of viral tantrums, Jake's approach reminds us, the law, when guided by steady hands, cuts through lies like a knife, leaving no room for doubt. As glass shards sparkled across the Miller's Market parking lot in Miller County, a crowd formed, transforming a reckless act into a viral testament to community and social media's role as unblinking witnesses. Jake Collins, the chief of police, stood frozen when a woman, livid over his SUV parked 2 feet from her Range Rover, smashed his windshield with a 6-inch landscaping rock. Unaware his 8-year-old son, Zach, sat inside, clutching a cherry popsicle. Her attempt to flip the script, filming Jake, crying, "He threatened me," might have worked in a vacuum, but not here. Shoppers, some still gripping grocery bags, slowed their steps. A teenager yanked out an earbud. A man in a polo whispered, "She really did that?" Phones emerged, their lenses catching every angle of her performance. For Americans aged 18 to 50, this scene is peak 2025. Whether you are a millennial glued to X or a Gen Xer refreshing local news, you've seen crowds turn incidents into instant uploads. The woman's lies, bold as a billboard, faltered under the weight of those silent, recording eyes. By the time Jake calmly revealed he was Chief Collins, and officers rolled in with lights flashing, the crowd wasn't just watching, they were testifying. A woman with a stroller nodded. A kid mouthed, "We saw it." Dashcam footage and a bagged rock sealed her fate. But it was the phones, held by folks in flip-flops and work boots, that amplified the truth. Charged with felony property damage and endangering a minor, she faced cuffs as clips hit the internet, racking up views from Texas suburbs to Michigan strip malls. Titles like "Karen Meets Karma" flooded feeds, resonating with viewers tired of entitlement skating free. For this audience raised on viral justice, the story hits home. In a world where everyone's a cameraman, lies unravel fast. From tailgate disputes to coffee shop rants, Americans know the power of a crowd that won't stay quiet. Jake didn't need to shout. The community's gaze, paired with social media's reach, did the heavy lifting. It's a reminder that in parking lots or online, truth spreads when people stand together, phones up, ready to call out nonsense and back up what's right. No filter needed. In the fading light of a Miller County evening, after a rock shattered his SUV's windshield in Miller's Market parking lot, Jake Collins, the chief of police, turned a jarring incident into a quiet lesson for his 8-year-old son, Zach. The chaos began when a woman, furious that Jake's SUV was parked 2 feet from her Range Rover, hurled a 6-inch landscaping rock, splintering glass and terrifying Zach, who sat inside, his cherry popsicle trembling in his small hands. As she spun lies, filming Jake and claiming he was the aggressor, a crowd's phones captured the truth, and Jake's calm professionalism, backed by dashcam footage, led to her arrest for felony property damage and endangering a minor. But for Jake, the real stakes weren't in the cuffs or the viral clips spreading from Texas to Ohio. They were in the boy sitting beside him later, wrapped in a blanket on their porch, processing what he'd seen. For Americans aged 18 to 50, millennials raising kids or Gen Xers mentoring nieces and nephews, this moment cuts deep. Jake didn't lecture. When Zach asked, "Was she a bad guy?" he paused, the crickets humming beyond their yard. "She made a bad choice," he said, "a dangerous one, and she hurt people." It was a father's answer, simple but heavy, teaching Zach that actions carry weight, no matter the excuse. In a world of school drop-offs and Little League games, parents know this talk, guiding kids through right and wrong without venom. Jake's restraint during the confrontation, never raising his voice despite his pounding heart, modeled integrity for Zach more than any speech could. When Zach murmured, "I'm glad you were there," Jake ruffled his hair, feeling the day's weight lift, not because justice landed, but because his son saw fairness prevail without hate. This resonates across suburban porches and city apartments, where adults strive to raise kids who value truth over tantrums. The viral story, splashed across X with titles like "Chief Shuts Down Karen," mattered less to Jake than Zach's thoughtful silence. For viewers from Florida cul-de-sacs to Minnesota malls, it's a reminder. Justice isn't just about winning, it's about showing the next generation how to stand tall, steady, and right, even when the world gets loud. The story of Jake Collins teaches us that our actions ripple far beyond the moment, especially when anger clouds judgment. A woman's impulsive rock throwing over a parking spot endangered a child, reminding us to pause and consider consequences before lashing out, whether in a traffic jam or a heated work email. Jake's calm professionalism shows that restraint isn't weakness, it's power, a lesson for anyone facing a rude neighbor or an online spat. Truth, backed by evidence and community, ultimately prevails, so we should stand firm in what's right, even when lies get loud. For parents, Jake's porch talk with Zach underscores the importance of modeling integrity for kids, teaching them accountability over excuses. In our social media age where every phone's a witness, we're reminded to act with decency. Someone's always watching. From suburban lots to city streets, these lessons urge us to choose patience, own our mistakes, and protect what matters most. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about setting a line that holds us all accountable.